Today I'm presenting on a paper called Olfactory Exposure to Males, Including Men, Causes Stress and Related Analgesia in Rodents. Or in layman's terms, male researchers induced pain-inhibiting stress in mice. So the first question we need to address before we start this is, what exactly is pain? And the first thing that probably comes to mind is pain is what you feel when you get bumped or bruised or injured. But on a more scientific level, there's not really a lot known about what pain actually is. The scientists don't have a lot of research indicating how pain is made or what happens when you get hurt and the scientific pathways and stuff of pain. And also, there's really no official way to measure pain. So in humans, you've probably seen this before, this is actually the official way to measure pain. A doctor or a nurse or somebody will ask you to rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10 and relate to the smiley faces. And this is the only official way we actually have to measure pain. But with mice, it's kind of a problem because mice can't speak. So in order to measure pain in mice, scientists had to come up with something that they call the mouse grimace scale. And what it is a scale that goes from 0 to 2 with 5 different subcategories of different types of facial tension in mice. A 0 being no pain, 1 being moderate pain, and 2 being severe pain. So in the past, researchers have seen that when there are male researchers present when doing experiments, mice tend to feel a little bit less pain than when there were female researchers or no researchers. So to look into this, they performed what they called a Zymacin A test, which is they took Zymacin A, which is an inflammatory agent, and injected it into the ankles of mice. And they tested with no observer in the room, male observers in the room, and female observers in the room. And they did this on a test of the mouse grimace scale, so from 0 to, well, it would be 2, just nothing scored as high as a 2. And as you can see, when there were male researchers present, the mice felt significantly less pain, which means they scored significantly lower on the mouse grimace scale than when there were female researchers present as well as no researchers present.
Were the males of a certain age, or were they single?
Didn't specify. And this effect of the mice feeling less pain when there were males in the room was came to be known as the male observer effect. The next thing the researchers wanted to do was test if this male observer effect was olfactory, meaning had to do with smell or visual, so sight. So what they did next was they performed the same test they had before, but this time, instead of having male researchers in the room, they would have shirts worn by males and females, or 2 males, 2 females, or a male and female. And again, it scored the same way on the mouse grimace scale. You can see that when there was a male shirt or a shirt worn by 2 males, the mice scored significantly lower on the mouse grimace scale, which led the researchers to believe that this phenomenon of feeling less pain with the males around was in fact olfactory rather than visual. The next thing they did to further look into what was causing this phenomenon was they tested 3 different steroids that are auxiliary signals, so they don't produce by combination of one by the arm. And these 3 auxiliary signals are all steroids, and they're also all pheromones. And what pheromones are is they're steroids that are secreted by the body and can smell. They have certain flavors. The 3 different ones they tested were 3-MTH, androstenone, and androstenone. So, as you can see, there's 3 different bars for each of the 3 steroids, and what they did was they tested 3 different dosages. The smallest dosage being far from what an actual human would treat, and the largest dosage being close to what an actual human would treat. So as you can see, when there were higher dosages, there was significantly less pain felt by mice than in sort of mouse. Yeah.
Go back one time. What's the point of the male? What's the point of having separate 1 by 2 males?
I don't know. I just know that they did it for
Maybe it's not that fact across all males.
look into that and get back to you.
2 separate shirts for 1
No, 1 shirt worn by 2 separate males. So after seeing that this effect was olfactory in nature, they said, what next? And the researchers in this important to understand is the difference between anesthesia and anesthesia. So most of you probably heard of anesthesia or have the other anesthesia and what anesthesia is a temporary state of unconsciousness and where you have an inability to feel pain. What's the difference between anesthesia and analgesia is analgesia is the inability to feel pain while you're fully conscious. So starting with the theory of that this is the steroid producing neurons involved in stress response. So what they did was they performed again the Madison A test, but this time instead of storing the mice in a mouse nervous cell, they looked for levels of corticosteroid. And what you can see is that when there's a male present or a male shirt present, there was significantly more corticosterone in the mice, which led the scientists to believe that yes, the mice were in fact stressed. That's male shirt plus 30 minutes, and they waited 30 minutes to test to introduce a researcher, and there wasn't the same effect.
Wait, say it again?
They introduced a male researcher after 30 minutes. This is a different part of the paper that I'm not going into detail on.
Okay, after 30 minutes.
After 30 minutes, they introduced a male researcher, and it didn't have the same effect. To the mice.
After the corticosterone level increase.
No. They tested for corticosterone after. What they did here was the same Zymosin A test. They introduced the Zymosin A to the mice, and then what they did was the test. So they put the male researcher into the room and tested for levels of corticosterone. What they did here is after injecting Zymosin A, they waited 30 minutes before putting a researcher in the room, and then tested to see if the corticosterone levels were higher.
And they weren't.
And they were.
They showed the same. They showed. Okay. So.
What they were able to conclude from this overall was that part of the paper was able to conclude is that the pain effects only work directly after the pain is felt.
So the male has to be present at the time
Yes.
of pain
Yes.
in order for the effect to be shown.
Or a male shirt, or just specifically male research?
They did a male shirt for that.
Okay, so it was male shirt, not male research.
So specifically male smell.
So the researchers wanted to see if the molecular stress translated into behavioral stress. And from the past, researchers know that when mice get stressed, they poop. So instead of counting the levels of corticosteroid in this, they counted the amount of times the mice pooped after the test. And as you can see that when there was a male shirt present, the mice pooped a significantly higher amount of times than when there was a female shirt present or no shirt, indicating that yes, the mice were molecularly stressed as well as behaviorally stressed. So overall, what we can take from this is that when the male researchers were around, there was a higher level of stress and a lower level of pain.
What's
Yes.
the initials on the graph on the right indicate?
The initials of the researchers. This is the graph that we saw on the first slide.
And they're all male researchers?
These are all male researchers. So what the researchers were able to conclude from this is that when there was an increase of stress levels from the male researchers around, the mice did in fact feel less pain, leading to pain inhibition. And what this is important, it's important. It's important because before this, aside from the SIA, pain and stress were widely believed to be two different things, and this paper proves that they might actually have a stronger link than the science world realized, which could open a lot of doors in pain research. And bringing this to a human perspective of this, now in today's world, if somebody is feeling pain, they'll prescribe drugs that are highly known as to be widely addictive, such as morphine or Vicodin. And the thought is, what if stress can be used as a pain therapy? And while that might not sound to be the most pleasant thing ever, it could potentially be better than becoming addicted to a drug. So.
They do. They show the effect of stress on increased amounts of stress. In all the studies that we saw up there, there was like a standard amount of stress or change in it. And I think how research goes back to kind of stop that. But did they do increase the amount of so at a certain point, the male observer effect.
It wasn't significant enough to be significant.
So in the lower pain amounts, the male effect was obvious.
Yes,
In the higher amounts of pain, the male effect
was not as obvious.
okay.
They did that in the same part of the paper where they talked about the weighting, and I didn't address that in this presentation.
Were there male mice in the study?
They acknowledged that there were both male and female mice mixed, but they said that there wasn't a significant difference in the way the mice behaved to have to separate them.
So that means there's something about male humans.
Yes.
Well, I'm actually just They're
Yes,
real
Mr.
questions.
Is there any way to know whether the mice actually felt less pain or whether they were masking pain in their expression?
No, and that's where there's a fault in this. Like I said at the beginning, if we go back,
Before we end, there's something that's not clicking in my head.
Maybe one of you guys has picked up on it and seen it. It's kind of what Mr. Maxwell's hinting at. It's like masking pain versus not feeling pain. I don't know how to ask this.
Well, then why would they mask more pain when males were in the room than when females were in the room? Or was it said to...
Also, why would a mouse mask pain?
Yeah, they don't
Like,
know.
people lie, like, and cover their
Yeah, but-
pain
Right.
for like a million reasons.
Why? Why don't you think a mouse lies?
Well, I mean, they don't have like ulterior motives like
do you mean?
humans. Like they just live their lives in their little cage.
I mean, if they have anxiety systems like we do, if they have emotional systems like we do.
Right? Maybe they have their own little mouse world, but
If the males are emitting hormones or whatever, then wouldn't it be like the nice thing since kind of threat so it doesn't just lead so
I think that's what Mr. Maxwell actually had proposed a while ago. I just really, so the idea, like again, that, like what's the difference between masking pain and what's the difference between actually not feeling pain? Because I think that has something to do with like the dose dependent kind of idea that she was talking about earlier, when there was a lot of pain administered. You don't see the male observer effect as much.
Is it the opposite? When there's a lot, when the mice were scoring at almost a 2 on the mouse Grommer scale, the male observer effect was less present.
So like imagine yourself in a lot of pain and imagine something trying to either shut down that pain or imagine just that pain not existing. I think if that pain
no.
was stopped, you would see that effect. If it was masked, maybe your ability to mask it at higher levels. I'm just throwing stuff out here.
I think that question could be addressed with the lack of understanding of pain in general, and the lack of having a way of being able to measure it accurately. Because until we can find a way to measure it other than by marking down what facial expression the mouse makes, I don't think that there's going to be a way to accurately know whether or not they're masking or whether they're really feeling.
You don't know if there's a way to sense pain in zebrafish, do you?
No.
I bet you there's a way to introduce, I bet you could do studies.
I bet you could make a zebrafish grow a scale.
I bet you I could make a student do the same thing.
I think that's all the time we have this week.